Commanders fans just got the injury update on wide receiver Noah Brown that they have been waiting for. We'll talk about that at the top of today's edition of the Commanders Report. And then we'll cover a couple of Bleacher Report articles. The first one, a pre-training camp to-do list for Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, and the Washington Commanders. And then the second, the best and worst case scenario for the Washington Commanders offense heading into the 2025 season. Before we get into the content today, guys, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because I don't think that Adam Peters is done, guys. I think that the GM of the Washington Commanders has at least one more big move in him this offseason before we get into training camp. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for our free breaking news coverage whenever that big move or potentially big moves, multiple, come down the pike here before we get into Commanders training camp in late July. So now let's get into the good news here, guys, where ESPN Commanders reporter John Keim says that Noah Brown's injury that he suffered in mandatory minicamp last week, was carted off the field for, isn't anything serious and should be good to go for the start of Commanders training camp. And, this was something where, it's kind of ominous because he comes off the field, he gets carted off the field. The next day, head coach Dan Quinn is asked about it, says he has no update and he's getting an MRI, and then we don't hear anything for a little while. But Keim is saying that his expectation is that this isn't anything serious. And really, guys, in all reality, if this was bad, like if this was a torn Achilles or a torn ACL or something that would have been season threatening for Noah, I think we would have known that by now, and we would have known that relatively quickly. And the reason why we haven't really heard an update from Noah Brown and from the team on him is because it's probably not anything too serious. And personally, I'm excited to watch Noah Brown play as this team's number 3 receiver in this offense this year. Last year, in some limited time, had 35 catches for 453 yards and a touchdown. Now, just on the face of it, if you're putting that in the context of a 17-game schedule, that doesn't look all that good, but Brown did deal with injuries last year, played very limited sample size, and let me tell you, man, anybody that watched him play for the Washington Commanders last year knew that he developed a pretty quick chemistry with Jayden Daniels. He's a really good run blocker, really good size at 6'2", 215 pounds, and he's a big play machine, and he's been that ever since his days with the Houston Texans and Dallas Cowboys. So really excited to see what he's going to be able to do this year. Now, what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section for today's pin question. Is Noah Brown a legit number 3 wide receiver here for the Washington Commanders this year? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pin question. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. And now let's talk about somebody that I think is going to be a legitimate piece to this offense this year. That is Deebo Samuel, where you guys can pick up his number 1 Washington Commanders jersey from our friends at Fanatics today when you go to chatsports.com/Deebo. It also helps out the channel if you use our link, chatsports.com/Deebo. That's down in the comments and description of today's show. And you make a purchase, our friends at Fanatics give us here at the Commanders Report part of the proceeds. So not only do you get a brand new Deebo Samuel jersey, but we get some additional funds to help us pay for rent, to help us improve our graphics, help us keep the lights on, do all the things that we need to do here to give you guys free content on the Washington Commanders right here on YouTube. So we would greatly appreciate it. If you're planning on getting a Deebo Samuel jersey, regardless before the season, do it right now by going to chatsports.com/Deebo and getting your jersey today. So now let's get into a couple of Bleacher Report articles here that I thought were interesting on the Washington Commanders. The first one coming from Christopher Knox, where he gave the Washington Commanders a pre-training camp to-do list. So let's get into these 3 points and these 3 things that he thinks the Commanders need to do. The first one is to add pass rushing help, and this is something we have definitely talked about on the channel quite a bit. Christopher Knox had this to say about the Commanders' pass rush. Washington should look to bolster a pass rush that lost 2024 sacks leader Dante Fowler Jr. in free agency. Von Miller, Zadarius Smith, and Matthew Judon headline the remaining free agent market. Adding at least one of them in the coming weeks would be logical. And I completely agree with Christopher on this one. We've been talking about it on the channel for weeks, even going back to like Super Bowl week, the potential of getting a Myles Garrett trade. Of course, he ends up signing that massive contract with Cleveland, shifting over to the Trey Hendrickson trade rumors that are still alive and well at this point in the offseason. But as he mentions, there's still some pretty darn good free agency options out there, like Von Miller, Zadarius Smith, Matthew Judon are the guys that he mentioned. But Jadeveon Clowney, another guy that was just released by his respective team in the Carolina Panthers, Panthers that I think can help this team win. So I completely agree with Christopher here that this needs to be on the offseason to-do list. But then his number 2 item on the list here is figure out how to use Deebo Samuel, which is a little bit interesting because you would think that the Commanders would have a plan for Deebo. That's why they traded for him, but this is what Christopher had to say about this particular item. Offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury should have a game plan for the versatile runner and receiver well ahead of training camp. Washington has an opportunity to add a lot of wrinkles to its offense by maximizing Samuel's unique skill set. And of course, this is kind of echoing everything that we have been saying on this channel here at the Commanders Report when it comes to Deebo Samuel, that he is going to provide an extra element to this offense that was, I'm not going to say was missing last year, but you just didn't really have a whole lot of players that were capable of filling a role that Deebo Samuel is capable of running, where he's not only a good receiver, but he's also somebody that can be very versatile in where he lines up, pre-snap motions, wide receiver screen stuff, all that different stuff. Deebo Samuel's going to be that gadget Swiss Army knife player that was missing from this offense last year. And the reality of the situation is, guys, Cliff Kingsbury and the Washington Commanders already have a plan for Deebo Samuel. So I don't really understand why this is on the offseason and preseason to-do list here when the Commanders already have that plan in place for Deebo Samuel this year. And then the final item here on this to-do list from Bleacher Report is to extend or trade Scary Terry McLaurin. This is kind of the other big story that we have been following on this channel over the last several days and weeks. This is what Christopher had to say about the Scary Terry extension and those negotiations that the team is having with him right now. Wideout Scary Terry McLaurin, who is coming off his 5th consecutive 1,000-yard season, played a huge role in Daniels' rookie development. Washington general manager Adam Peters really needs to sort out his situation before camp. McLaurin decided to skip minicamp while angling for a new contract, and his absence spoke volumes. Ideally, Washington will use some of its $24.1 million in remaining cap space to get McLaurin under a new contract and in camp. If that can't be done, finding the best trade package for McLaurin will become a priority. Now, for me, guys, where I kind of go against Christopher's thinking here is that I think a trade is absolutely off the table for me. All right, like you just look at the current wide receiver trade landscape right now. There's not a whole lot of players that you can get in exchange for Terry McLaurin. Probably best case scenario is Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off a major knee injury. He also has some stuff off the field that would be a concern for the Commanders if they end up getting him in a trade, in a swap between him and Scary Terry McLaurin with the 49ers. I think that this team just needs to focus on extending Scary Terry McLaurin. That's my personal opinion, and I think that is what the Washington Commanders are going to do heading into the training camp here. They're not going to trade him. They're going to extend him. It's just a matter of time. Now make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already, if you are having a good time on today's show. We still got one more topic to discuss here on the Commanders Report today, but we really do appreciate it if you click that thumbs up icon. It helps out the YouTube algorithm, which of course puts our videos in front of more Commanders fans like yourselves. So if you want to help our channel grow today, you want to help us out, click that thumbs up icon for a free and easy way to help us out. So now let's get into the final topic today, which is Bleacher Report's article here, laying out the best and worst case scenarios for the Washington Commanders heading into the 2025 season when it comes to the offense. Now, the best case that they lay out here is that the veteran additions that the Commanders have brought in push the offense even further than where it was in 2024. This article was written by Alex Ballentine, who had this to say about the Commanders' offense and their best case scenario. Jayden Daniels was a one-man transformational figure last season for the Commanders. Even the most avid Daniels fan would have a hard time saying they saw his ascent to the top coming. The Commanders went from 27th to 4th in EPA per play and 25th in scoring to 5th. The Commanders got aggressive to make sure Daniels has a better support system around him next season. If Laremy, Tunsil, and Deebo Samuel can live up to their reputations, they are going to fill the team's biggest needs. Tunsil will create a real solution at left tackle, while Samuel can be the sidekick Terry McLaurin hasn't really had in Washington. If those guys can help Daniels continue his development, then there's nothing stopping Washington from competing to be the league's best offense. And I tend to agree with Alex on this, especially if Deebo really plays well and Laremy Tunsil is still the best pass-protecting left tackle in football. There's nothing that's really preventing Cliff Kingsbury, Jayden Daniels, Terry McLaurin and this crew here in Washington from being, one of, if not the best offense in the National Football League this year. And then the worst case scenario that Alex kind of puts in his article here for the Washington Commanders offense is that it's a repeat of the 2024 Texans, where of course CJ Straud had one of the best rookie seasons of all time for the Houston Texans. Then in 2024 really took a big step back in his sophomore season. Ballentine says this about the possibility of the Commanders repeating the Texans regression. CJ Straud wasn't quite as impactful as a rookie as Daniels was. He did, however, lift the Texans offense from the worst in the league to at least above average as a rookie. The Texans then got aggressive and signed Stephon Diggs and traded for Joe Mixon. It looked like they were set to become a top 5 offense until they didn't make that jump. Tunsil and Samuel are big names, but they carry risk. Tunsil is a 5-time Pro Bowler, but he'll turn 31 before the season. Samuel is 29 with a history of injuries and was not as explosive last season. If neither ends up being who the Commanders thought they were getting, then Daniels will still be shouldering a lot of the load. Now, listen, guys, I hear this connection a lot because C.J. Straud, Jayden Daniels both had really good rookie seasons. And then, of course, the Texans didn't play quite as well in C.J.'s second year as it was in his first year. But first of all, I think Jayden Daniels isn't C.J. Straud. I think, he's much more of a dynamic playmaker. Of course, he's a much more dynamic rusher of the football. So I think that versatility of ways that Jayden can beat you is a little bit better than C.J. Straud's. And then the reason why I think Straud really regressed in year 2 was because the offensive line got worse, and he got a little bit of pocket trauma last year where he was looking down at the rush. He was kind of expecting the rush to get there, which prevented his ability to anticipate open windows, all these different things, whereas Jayden Daniels, I don't think is going to have that problem. If anything, this offensive line in year 2 for him is going to be better than what it was in year 1. So I'm not too worried about this kind of regression, but I do agree with Alex that this is the worst case scenario for the Washington Commanders this year. So let me know down there in the comments section. Of course, the Commanders won 2 playoff games last year, but what is the percent chance that Washington doesn't win a single playoff game this year, just like the Houston Texans did last year after winning a playoff game in 2023? Put it on a scale of 0 to 100 for me down there in the comments section. Give me a percent chance the Commanders don't get any playoff victories here in 2025. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button for more free and informative Commanders updates every single day on this channel. Really do appreciate your guys' support. And until next time, guys, go raise some hail.